Well, hello there again. I'm Mark Fisher, pastry chef instructor here at Indian Hills Community College. I'm back again to do another segment today with you. This time we're going to do a basic cake donut. It's something that can be done at home fairly easily. The ingredients are pretty basic. Anything you can have at home, stuff you can pick up at the store. Only thing you may not have at home that we have here is the type of fryer that I have. The fryer that you could use at home could be like a deep fat fryer. Something you can put oil in and heat up to about 375 degrees. But everything else is pretty basic, easy to do at home on your countertop. Something fun for the kids on a Saturday morning, get them up and get them mixing up some donuts, fry their own donuts, finish them off like I have here, and have fresh donuts for your husband or dad in the morning. We have all-purpose shortening, granulated sugar, milk powder, mace, and a little vanilla. That will go in first. We're going to cream that up on our mixer. You can do this by hand too. Then I'm going to add my flour, which consists of bread flour and cake flour and baking powder. And then at the very end, we will have water go in there to bring it all to kind of a liquid paste type mixture. So I'm going to start off with my first set of ingredients. And if you're using the mixer home, you can use your paddle attachment. Mixing time from the time it goes onto the mixer to the time it goes onto your table, you're looking at probably about 10 minutes. Once the batter comes off the mixer, it'll go on the bench, and you want it to rest for about 15 minutes. Let that dough relax a little bit. All I'm doing right now is creaming up my sugar and my shortening with my milk powder. The mace that's in there has kind of it's a spice. Mace is a spice. It's kind of has the smell and the aroma of nutmeg and cinnamon blended together. Kind of highlights the donut, the taste of the donut itself. I'll add my vanilla. Now I'll add my eggs, which is whole eggs, egg yolks. You can add them all at once. Put it back in first so you don't get splattered in the face with yolk. They say yolk on your face. Is that it? Egg yolk in your face. Once it's incorporated, you can put it up in a higher speed, like a medium speed on your mixer. Get the eggs all incorporated really good. At the very end, my flour, I mixed my two flours together with my baking powder. I just kind of took a hand whisk and whisked it together, kind of sift everything together so that everything's well incorporated and blended. Okay, now I got my eggs in there. I'm going to add my flour. Put back on low speed. Let the flour start to mix into your egg butter, or not butter, but your shortening, milk powder mixture. Once it starts to incorporate, then I'm going to add my water at the very end. You got to be kind of careful. It's kind of like making biscuits. It's going to have the biscuit type texture to it. You want to be careful not to overmix it. If you overmix it, what you can have a kind of a tough type donut. It won't be really tender, be kind of dense. Now I'm going to start adding my water, just cold water. Okay, we got it mixed up. We're going to take it off the mixer now. And this is at the point where we need to let the dough rest and relax. Let the gluten in the dough relax. And I'll pull this out onto my bench and you can see what it looks like. Just flour your bench down a little bit with a little bread flour so it doesn't stick on you, because As you can see, it is kind of tacky. And this amount of dough, you'll get about 2 dozen donuts out of it. So doesn't make a lot, but it makes enough to feed yourself, the neighbors, maybe the mailman stops over. So, but you can see what as it looks here, it has a real tackiness to that, and it's just from the liquid that's in there. And I'm just going to let this sit on the bench for about 10 to 15 minutes, let that gluten in that dough relax a little bit before we start to roll it out and cut our donuts out. Okay, the batter that you've done, and most likely you may have to do this by hand at home. You may not have a small tabletop mixer where you can do that. But the batter or the dough itself has the consistency of a biscuit type dough. It is tacky. It will be a little bit harder to mix by hand, but it can be done. It takes a little bit longer, but the consistency of it is like a biscuit type batter, or maybe a stiff type cake batter itself too. You can tell it is damp, it is wet, but once you start working this dough out with a little flour on it, it does dry itself out. And that's the important thing. You don't want to overwork the dough to develop the gluten that's in the flour itself. So that's kind of a key thing there. So you have a nice tender, flaky type donut after it's been fried out of the fryer. So back to our donut dough here. It's set here for about 10-15 minutes. You want to relax a little bit. You can kind of tell it's kind of gotten a little spongy texture to it. It's not quite as damp as it was. Another key thing is, make sure your table or your bench is floured down real good so it doesn't stick on you. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this down by hand. You can use a rolling pin to roll it out to make it nice and flat, and try to keep it all as even as you can. And we want some thickness to this dough. Because this dough, when it does fry, it does poof up a little bit, get some thickness to it. So as you can see here, I got down to about 1/8 to 1/4 inch thickness, roughly. Now there's 2 ways you can cut these, and you want to cut them in a round circle. I have a cutter here that cuts it round and also cuts the center out of it too. If you don't have something like that to use, you can take any type of a round cutter. You can use like a glass, and you want about a 2.5-3 inch circle. And I took another small one. Once I cut this, I'll take my small one and just cut the center out. And then we have ourselves a round donut that we'll put on. I use these frying screens here. If you don't have a fryer home like this, you're using a deep fat fryer or some type of a pot with oil in it, you may want to use some type of a basket type skimmer or a sieve to lift your donuts into the fryer itself and take them out. How many donuts your fryer will hold? You might get 2 or 3, 4 or 5 in there. This here I can do a big bunch of one quantity at one time with this type of fryer. So I'll cut my rings out. You can put a little flour on your dough so it doesn't stick so much. Another thing about this dough, once you get them all cut out, you can take your scrap that you have left over and rework it and cut some more donuts out. And you only want to do this maybe one more time after this. The more you work it, the more gluten you'll work into your batter. Make your donuts a little tough. Okay, got my donuts all cut out. Lay it on my donut screen here. Make sure they're all nice and round, no odd shapes on them. I'll stick them in the fryer there Once they go into the fryer there, they'll settle to the bottom, and then once they start to fry, you'll see them float up to the top, just like magic. Once they get to the top, when one side gets a nice golden brown, I will turn them over and get the other side fried. Once they're both the same color, I'll pull them out of the fryer, and then we'll let them cool for a little bit before we finish them off with our icing and our sugars on them. And this is the way we do it out there in industry, in a retail bakery. We fry large quantities at one time, and our donut fryer, will hold a lot more donuts than what you might be able to do at home. So, kind of a fun little job. Everything's done by scratch, not taken out of a box, warmed up in the oven. Nice fresh donuts. You can see them, they're floating to the top here. You're talking frying time, 45 seconds to a minute. It just depends how your fryer is working. I can smell the freshness now. The cake donuts, they call them a cake donut because they have a cakey type texture to them, just kind of like a cake themselves. They're not real dense. They have a fluffiness to them. Reach in. Set them up here, let some of the excess oil run off, and then once they get cool enough, I'll transfer into my sheet, and then we'll go ahead and finish them off with our toppings. Okay, we got our donuts done. They're out of the fryer. They've cooled a little bit. We got 4 different styles of toppings you can do with them. Got just a basic powdered sugar. I got a granulated sugar, and then I have another one. It's called a donut glaze. It's used popular on a lot of different donuts, especially your glazed type donuts. It's basically just a powdered sugar, water. They use like a gelatin in there to act as a dryer in it so that when it dries on the donuts, it doesn't run off. And then I have a chocolate glaze here, which is powdered sugar. It might have a little corn syrup in it, and of course chocolate, a little vanilla for flavor. There's recipes out there that you can make this. It's heated up. You can heat this up and pour it over your donuts. I'm going to dip these today, but it's fairly easy to use. The toppings, when you apply them, the donuts have to be fairly cool, especially for the powdered sugar. If they're warm, what will happen to the powdered sugar? The sugar will kind of melt and get pasty on you. The granulated sugar, the donuts can be a little warm, so the sugar will stick to the donuts. And also on the glaze, you want the donut to have a little bit of temp to it so that the heat from the donut will cure the glaze as it's cooling down. It acts as when sugar is heated up, when it cools down, it kind of coagulate together. It acts as a binder for the glaze to set up on you. So I'm going to do the sugar ones first and the glaze, and then we'll do the powdered sugar and then the chocolate ones at the very end there. So very easy to do. Just regular granulated sugar. Just toss them in your donuts in there. You could also add cinnamon to this here and make a cinnamon sugar too, which is really good too if you're kind of into cinnamon too. See where they're warm, they just kind of coat to the donut. So there's my granulated sugar, my glaze. This don't have to be heated up; it can be used cold. Dip your donuts in this here. Want to, you can submerge it all the way if you really like a lot of glaze on your donut. Just push her down in there. Let that excess run off. Make you want to reach out and grab this right now, doesn't it? I'm standing right here and I can just smell and taste it right now. So no calories in these, none whatsoever. Okay, got my glazed ones done. Stir my chocolate up. This is the consistency you want to have, so it runs off your donut or your spatula really nice and loose. Okay, so take my donut. Let some of the excess run off. Then dip it right into your sprinkles. You have to do it when the chocolate is still warm and wet. If you don't, the sprinkles won't stick to it. So, another thing I like to do too is just you can take your glazed ones, and once you've glazed it with the donut glaze, dip them in the chocolate. You talk about 2 combinations. You have the sweetness from the glaze, and then you have the chocolate flavor and the richness from the chocolate. I mean, this is really extra nice there. So, okay, and I rest my donuts. We're gonna roll them in the powdered sugar. Again, just like the granulations. These are just a tad bit warm. And you might see how the sugar might just melt a little bit. So you want to make sure they're completely cooled, because the sugar will stick to them if they're cold completely too. So coat them up really nice. It's just a regular powdered sugar, nothing special about it. Get them all coated. You're ready for breakfast. Nice cup of coffee, fresh donuts made right at home. And there we have our finished cake donuts.